next General Assembly may well have to decide on whether or not to allow localities to remove Confederate monuments and statues. Currently, Virginia law restricts counties from removing Confederate monuments and statues, according to the Attorney General, allows cities to remove them if they've been erected in recent years, but if they haven't been erected in recent years, if they're older than recent years, then they're restricted as well. The next General Assembly is likely to have to weigh in on this. What do you think should happen to these monuments and statues, and would you support giving local governments the authority to remove them?
I think that it is a local government discussion. I think history is very personal to people, and people's relationship with their history is really important. And at the local level, we really need to have more deep conversations where we listen to each other and we hear about each other's story and each other's relationship to history in Virginia. And as a leader, I will be very willing to lead these conversations and make sure that everyone is really heard on this issue. And I would support localities having the decision making, but I think it has to be a local decision, and it can only happen after some very long considered conversations. And maybe these conversations happen over years. I don't know, it depends on the community. But you know, I believe in local control in general, and the school board, my experience on the school board has been, yes, we really do need local control for our schools. We don't want the state of Virginia usurping the power of local school boards. So I do think it's a really important issue for localities. You know, I know that we've come a long way in terms of racial equality in Virginia, but we still have a long way to go. And we really need to have these conversations so that everybody feels heard and everybody feels represented. So
just to be clear, you would support a bill that gave localities the authority to remove statues?
I mean, I think it should be a local, I think the more government we have at the local level, the more decision making we have at the local level, the better government we have.
Okay, good. Mr. Yancey?
First, there is currently a lawsuit, I believe it's in Danville, in regards to this issue, in regards to the real estate law about this matter. So, oftentimes in the Virginia legislature, the purview is to wait until the court system has made a decision before legislative action would happen. So, I'm just bringing you all up to date on where we are on that situation, with an understanding that the courts very well may strike the law and this issue could be moved. But with that being said, I would like to remind everybody in this room, there was a fantastic article just a few weeks ago in the Richmond Times-Dispatch in which 5 African-American males were brought to, I believe it was the statute of robbery and leaving. And they were asked, what do you think of this statute? What does this statute mean to you? And they went back and they thought about it, and one of the members of this group, I believe it was a bicycle team, came back and he wrote a powerful quote on Facebook. In essence, what he said was, everyone's worried about these statues, which means nothing to me, and yet I need the money to get ahead in life. I need money for food. I need money for my education. I want to get ahead in life. I don't care about this stuff. I'm really focused on these things in my life, and they're not there. So for an example, as I understand it, it would cost between $18 and $20 million to potentially take down this statue. Well, if you go talk to the local food bank in the city of Newport News and Hampton, they would tell you that $1 will feed 4 people. If you talk to the local Boys and Girls Club, $10 will take care of 1 child for the entire day, including their food. If you talk to the Newport News Police in this issue with opioids, they'll tell you that $400 provides the medical treatment they need for themselves or for their dogs should they be exposed to fentanyl. So for me, as I listen to this young man and his dream and his vision of what he wants to be, my thoughts are, what can we do to support him accordingly, and how best to make sure that those resources are there for him and for his future and for his friends and for those young people who want to have a great quality of life.
So again, just to be clear, would you support or not support a bill that gave localities?
So a couple things. One, obviously you got to see where the court case would be. And then 2, I think we have to understand that there's a lot of needs in our community. I'm hearing from local communities that are challenged, cities that are financially strained. We obviously have our challenges in our budget in our state. So my thoughts are, if this is going to be something that could ultimately lead to a lot of cost overruns, which then they come back to the state of Virginia and say, we need more, where are we going to get the resources for? So I think this is something that we need to think it through as we progress on this very important topic.
Okay, and Ms. Simonds, you have the opportunity for a response if you'd like it.
I mean, I just want to say that I think the events that happened in Charlottesville were horrific for our state. My daughter, Tessa, was just headed there as a student, and she was getting phone calls from other UVA students from all across the country, really worried about their safety. And I just have to reiterate what the governor has said, that Nazis and white supremacists are just not welcome in Virginia. And when I'm elected to the General Assembly, I'll do everything in my power to make sure that they don't have a stage on which to perform and to express their hatred.
Okay, and I'm trying to focus on issues that are going to be important to the next General Assembly and that are local. This might be in the weeds a little bit, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to explain this. This gets at this issue of certificate of public need that has come before the General Assembly a couple of times now. So this is an issue. The Certificate of Public Need is a law, so bear with me. I'm going to try to lay some groundwork. Certificate of Public Need is a law that requires healthcare providers and facilities to get permission from the state before they can offer certain kinds of services. So, for example, if a company wanted to open an MRI screening facility here, in Newport News somewhere, they'd have to get the state's permission to do so first. There has been for several years an effort to get rid of the state's oversight of facilities like that, or at least to minimize or reduce state oversight, so that market forces can come to bear on particular very expensive kind of health procedures. Advocates say that it would inject market forces, while opponents say that it would take money away from current healthcare providers, leaving them with the most expensive procedures to offer without the ability to make money off the ones that cost the most. Should the Certificate of Public Need be reformed in Virginia? And if so, why and how? And if not, why and why not? And the question goes to Mr. Yancey first.
This is always a fun topic of conversation.
This is called policy wonk question. Sure, I recognize that. But it's critically important to us, given the healthcare in this city.
Absolutely. Well, look, I've been a supporter of reforming the Certificate of Public Need. Let me backtrack for a second so that everybody can understand one of the issues in regards to COPN. So a few years ago, seeing my doctor, I have what's called sphenoid headaches, and I went to go see him to make sure there was nothing there. He checked it out, everything was fine. And he said, we've got to make sure that you don't have brain cancer. So off I went to a hospital, got a CAT scan. A few days later, I got a bill for $2,500. It was enough to put me back in the hospital. But what I would tell you is this: because of that, I put in a bill about medical transparency. And now it is the law in Virginia that you can go and you can ask a hospital, what is the cost of a medical procedure? And within 3 business working days, they have to get back to you with what that cost will be. COPN is an important topic because if you speak to medical professionals, and they'd say, for example, that if you want to come in for your annual colonoscopy, something I know that everybody in this room is just chomping at the bit to talk about, it would cost you maybe $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 at a hospital, but it could cost you $1,000 at a small doctor's office. So the COPN issue is really about competition, the ability to compete, the ability to support, the ability to help people. And really what we're talking about is working families here in Newport News, whether you live in the Jenkins or the Sedgefield area or along the waterfront or up in Nelson. The majority of the people that work in our communities are blue-collar folks. They're hard-working people. They're putting money aside for their pensions. So this is all about what can we do to provide quality care at an affordable cost. This is one of, obviously, the challenges that we're having right now. So I think when you're talking about the reform, what can the state of Virginia do to lift some of the burdensome regulations to allow competition in the marketplace in order for doctors to be able to do what they feel that they can do well? I'll add one more thing. I think going forward in COPN conversations, it's unclear, obviously, because we've been waiting on some Senate action that hasn't happened, per your wonkish appreciation. But what I will tell you is I think there's some conversations now in Richmond that we should go back and we should look at COPN the way it had been a long time ago, which is you have a person who comes forward with an appeal for, say, an MRI or something along those lines, and then you present the legislation, and then it gets voted up and down in the committee, and then off she goes. But I think the real core issue for me here is we've got to look at what can we do to augment and help out, and it's part of the insurance costs and with Medicaid and things like that. I think if we can work out some kind of a deal within the COPN reform where some of these doctors can take on some of the Medicaid patients, because mind you, not all doctors will or do. But we can look at that as something that can be supportive. And then we have one more final actor in this, and that is the insurance companies. Anthem made it very clear just a few weeks ago that they are not going to be paying for some of these services that we all want, like the colonoscopies, that are really critical for our healthcare. And they made it very clear that there's only a certain amount that they're willing to pay, there's only a certain amount that they're willing to reimburse, and where they want it is at these small little doc shops, if you will, that can best pay, that they can provide this kind of coverage. So it's an ongoing issue, but it's one that we're looking at to create more competition and to be able to help hardworking families save some money.
Great. Ms. Simonds?
Well, I would say that a lot of these hardworking families out there don't have access to health care. That's the big problem right now. The cost curve on health care has been so steep that it's unaffordable for half the population. So many people end up in the emergency room when they have a sore throat. And that has caused a lot of care to be given in emergency rooms. And when it comes to COPN, I am going to stand with the hospitals on this one every day of the week, because I think that hospitals are on the front lines of this crisis that we have in terms of affordability. I don't see any kind of free market in healthcare right now. I mean, if you have a broken arm, you're not going to shop around to see which hospital is the cheapest. You are going to go to the emergency room and you're going to hope that you get good care there. Senator Tim Kaine has a really neat proposal that I support called Medicare X. And what it would do is it would allow people all across Virginia to buy into Medicare. And the thing that I think is brilliant about it is not only, Medicare has a very large network of providers, but there's cost control in Medicare. Medicare knows how much a Band-Aid costs, and Medicare already has some built-in price controls in it. So to me, I think that's the direction we really need to go into. Of course, I also think we need to expand Medicare. If we had done that, Medicaid, we would have had more compensation for the hospitals, and the COPN might not be such an important issue to them. But right now, if you take away imaging services and the profitable services of a hospital like Riverside, they're left with the care, the emergency care they have to offer, which people end up not paying for.
Great. Mr. Yancey, you have time for an opportunity for a rebuttal response if you'd like.
Thank you. It's hard enough to get a bill passed in Richmond. It's next to impossible to get one passed in Washington. So until Congress gives us more guidance on what we can and can't do, the law of the land currently is what it is. And so we're looking at the issue of certificate of public need. This is an issue that the Commonwealth of Virginia can address. So pulling this issue back to where we are in this room, there's sort of a U-shaped graph, if you will, where on this end you have to have everybody insured, and then on this end people have to have high deductibles. So I talk to senior citizens that have $4,000 or $5,000 a month in insurance coverage, and yet they have a $10,000 or a $7,500 deductible. As one person put it to me, I get a red dot on my nose. I don't know if it's skin cancer or if it's acne. So I got to wait until it turns black until I know I really do have a problem, and then go see a dermatologist, because I get a one-shot deal at paying that $7,500 deductible that I have. So I think for me, the thought is we're addressing the issue of certificate of public needs. What can we do to look at a regulatory issue that can augment some of the costs that working families know that they can put towards their medical treatment? So I go back to the issue of a medical treatment. You can pay $4,000 or $5,000 to a hospital, or you can pay $1,000 to a doc shop. We're talking about MRIs or things like that. Now, there's obviously some things that the hospitals invest heavily into, and I'm certain that that'll be part of the conversation on CAT scans and brain MRIs and things like that. But the point here is, I think whatever we can do that can help augment the costs and bring the cost down to help working families should be considered.
Great. The next question is